Please find your seats. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's a quick lesson in public speaking. Always remove the gum from your mouth before you begin. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for getting to your seats so quickly. We really appreciate it. My name is Paul Jewell. I'm the moderator for this evening's Candidates Forum. This is brought to you tonight by the Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce and the Kittitas County League of Women Voters. They are our hosts tonight. Let's quickly give them a big thank you and a round of applause. So we have a couple of public offices that we'll be talking to tonight as far as the candidates. The first is the Legislative District 13. That's our state legislator district, one of two positions. And our Kittitas County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. We're going to start with Legislative District 13, Representative position number 2. Now tonight's program will last about 2 hours. We'll have a break in between. But the first group will go for about an hour. The second group will go for about an hour as well. The questions that will be asked this evening, some of them have already been provided to the candidates. There are a couple of them. Are you hearing me okay in the microphone? I'm going to do a better job of talking into that. Sorry about that. So some of the questions have already been provided to the candidates. They got those in advance. But the rest of the questions, in fact, the majority of the program, we're relying on you, the audience, to provide. The League of Women Voters volunteers have note cards and pens. If you'd like a question, please raise your hand. They will bring a note card and a pen to you. And then when you've formulated your question in a very legible and coherent way, please pass that to the center and they will come pick that up. And those questions will come up to me as the moderator as the program continues, and we'll make those available to the candidates. Now we ask that when you do produce those questions that you make sure that you're producing a question that is to both of the candidates in this particular case, or all three in the case of the Prosecuting Attorney's Office, okay? We will not ask questions that are directed just at one candidate. This is a candidates forum. We want to remain balanced. We want to make sure that there's equal time for both candidates, okay? Otherwise, the candidates have not seen any of the questions. So they got the first couple that we're going to ask tonight, and that's your opportunity to really kind of formulate what you'd like to ask the candidates. We're asking for your participation. But after that, everything will be just off the top of their head. They haven't had a chance to view any of those questions before. After we go through each of the questions, well, first we'll start with opening statements and introductions, and then we'll go through questions. Then we'll have the candidates do a wrap-up at the end. Candidates will be introduced by the name that they have placed on the ballot, and then after that they will be referred to by myself as the moderator as Mr. or Ms., depending on their preference. Let's see. So to leave time for questions, it says here that we've got no opening statements, but I thought we had 90 seconds for that. Yeah, okay, so that's an error. So we will have. So that's Forms question 1. Thank you. With order of the candidates, it's going to switch back and forth, so we maintain balance on who answers first and who answers second. The questioning format is standard Q&A, like I said, and each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond. We do have a timer right in front. They will give you a warning, candidates, and then they will give you a stop sign at 60 seconds. We do ask that you be respectful of the time. You don't have to necessarily cut off abruptly your answer. We just ask that if you are still answering that you complete it quickly within a second or two. If you continue on, we may have to cut you off, okay? And that's at the moderator's discretion. Moderator will pose all questions. Candidates are not allowed to ask one another questions. You are provided an opportunity for a rebuttal of 30 seconds at the moderator's discretion. So if you are interested in rebutting an answer, please just give me a signal. And if we have time, I'll give you that opportunity. Let's see. Candidates are asked to limit their responses to the questions posed. The candidates are asked not to interrupt each other or talk during each other's allotted time for answering. I will be in charge of enforcing that rule. I did lift weights this morning, so I prepared. Let's see. Candidates are asked to refrain from leveling accusations, charges, or personal attacks of any nature, or really addressing anything that's irrelevant to the office or the issues pertaining to the office that you're seeking. Personal attacks will be treated as disruptive behavior. Any disruptive behavior on the part of the candidates or the audience, I'm looking at you guys, is at the moderator's discretion and can be enforced by asking you to remove yourself from the building. If that were to happen, which I don't think it will, we will continue with the candidates forum once that disruption is taken care of. Speaking of disruptions, I know you all have one of these little devices in your pocket, yes? Everybody have one? Who doesn't have a cell phone? I knew no one would raise their hand. Okay, so you don't want to be the person whose ringtone goes off in the middle of someone asking a question, right? So take the time, you're going to thank me for this later, take the time, pull this thing out, and turn it on silent. Every time we do one of these, I say the same thing, and every time we do one of these, somebody doesn't do it, and it gets captured. And that person turns a really, really bright shade of red. So don't let that be you. Don't ruin your night. Let's have a great night together. Please turn your phones on silent, if you will. Now, obviously, this forum is open to the public. We asked and encourage the public to join. Again, if you have questions, let's get those going. But we also ask the public not to react in any way to the candidates and their answers at this point. We really are asking for civil discourse. This is an opportunity for you to ask questions and to listen. It's not an opportunity for you to cheer for the home team, right, or your favorite candidate. That comes later, all right? So let's just keep those things to a minimum. If you've brought any of those really big signs with you that say, go so-and-so, just fold those up, sit on them, put them underneath your chair, right? No props are allowed. And that goes for candidates as well. They're not allowed any props of any kind, graphs, presentations, etc. Just their lovely voices this evening. Obviously, the layout is in front of you, and I think we're ready to go. Candidates, do you have any questions about any of those rules before we begin? No. Perfect. All right. Well, I'd like to introduce your candidates this evening for Legislative District 13, State Representative position number 2. We have to my left here, Deanna Martinez. Right next to her, across the table, is Joshua Thompson. And our third candidate couldn't be here this evening. His name is Don Myers, and Don asked me to begin by expressing his sincere apologies for not being here in person. Tonight is a scheduled Moses Lake City Council meeting, and as a current elected official, he believes that when people entrust you with a responsibility, you have an obligation to show up and do a job. While he regrets missing tonight's forum, he appreciates the opportunity to share that message with you, and he does have a written statement that can be found at the candidates information table in the back, so feel free to grab that at any time. All right, candidates, we will begin with questions, and the first question essentially is going to be your opening statement. We'll start with you, Ms. Martinez. Please introduce yourself, share why you're running, and what you hope to accomplish in your first year if elected.
Hi, my name is Deanna Martinez. I grew up in Warden, very small town in the 13th District. I've lived all my life in the 13th District. Moved to the big city of Moses Lake because I had a family to raise, and Moses Lake had more opportunities for families. I no longer have kids at home. I could be somewhere else, but I choose to stay in Moses Lake and continue to be an active member of the community. I've had over 37 years of community advocating by volunteering or sitting on boards. I am a registered nurse by trade, which I believe gives me some additional qualities because you need to be able to talk to your patients so that they listen to you and convince them that what you're saying is true and correct. And also that excuse me, that was distracting. Sorry, I just totally lost what I was going to say. But anyway, so having taken care of patients, I know that, we all have our struggles, and A lot of them are caused by policy coming out of Olympia, and I want to try and rectify that. Local government, local towns need to have their voice heard, and so I want to make sure to do that. So, good.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, same question.
My name is Joshua Thompson, and I was born and raised in the state of Washington. Grew up in Bellevue, but spent all of my summers on the family farm. And in spending all that time...
Mr. Thompson, would you mind pulling the microphone just a little bit closer?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Is this better?
Much better.
Okay. So, born and raised in Washington, and spent all my time on the family farm, 40 acres. That's only been owned by one other family. And spent the last 20 years in tech, first as an engineer at Microsoft, and then in consulting. I started that after graduating with a degree in economics. It was also at Microsoft where I met my wife, Inez, who's here with us today. And about a decade ago, we moved to Kittitas County, to Ellensburg. It was a city and a county that I just fell in love with. First by helping to build the house that my, is that 30 seconds left? That was quick. Anyway, so look, I think Kittitas and District 13 is all worth fighting for. It's a unique blend of agriculture and tech with data centers. And I think I'm in a unique position, both a love for rural living as well as a deep career knowledge in big tech. And I hope to take that to Olympia.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. All right, candidates, obviously being up here in front of everyone makes the time go by very quickly. I'll remind you that now we're switching from 90 seconds to 60 seconds for your answers, so the time is now cut by a third from what you just experienced. I understand that sometimes your train of thought can get a little lost when you see that 30 seconds to go come up, but just kind of try to see that in your peripherals and plow through, right? All right, now we're going to switch the order. Mr. Thompson, you'll go next with the second question. Again, I'll remind you, this is 60 seconds. What issue affecting the 13th Legislative District do you believe has not received enough attention in Olympia? And what would your approach be to ensuring that that issue is addressed?
Olympia has treated rural Washington like we're also a big urban center. One size all solutions will never work here. I believe that given the nature of our power and water shortages and the need to protect our agricultural land and our ranchers, it's not being taken care of out of Olympia. And in going there, I plan on meeting with other lawmakers. I know soon-to-be Senator Rivera and Representative May are both working on agriculture, on water-specific issues, and I would hope to connect with them. As being a freshman, it's going to be necessary to find individuals that have that experience and to learn.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Ms. Martinez, same question.
Can you repeat the question?
Happy to. What issue affecting the 13th Legislative District do you believe has not received enough attention in Olympia? And what would your approach be to ensuring that the issue is addressed?
Well, I think I touched on it in my introduction. Having been a city council member for Moses Lake, I learned quickly that our city doesn't get to make its own decisions a lot of times. We get to be yelled at as council members, but ultimately, a lot of stuff is brought down through Olympia, and it doesn't fit rural Washington. It doesn't fit 13th District. So I am opposed to cookie cutter policy, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm running for for the legislature is because we need to make sure that the 13th district still has voice and it's heard. I do have, I believe, an advantage to some degree that I have worked with the representatives of our district for the last several years, and I've developed relationships with other legislators in the Republican caucus, and I'll have support from them even though I'm a freshman.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. All right, the next question that we have for our candidates, Ms. Martinez, you'll go first. Mr. Thompson, you'll answer second. Again, you'll have 60 seconds. Many see data centers as an opportunity for economic development, while others have raised concerns about their impacts on electricity demand, water resources, and costs to existing ratepayers. How do you balance these competing interests? And what role should data center developers play in addressing the impacts of their projects?
Thank you for the question. Data centers, of course, are interesting topic for the 13th district. We all know about the Quincy Miracle, small town of Quincy, a pretty poor community, and the data centers came in and have really enriched that community. So it is possible to do data centers correctly in a way that contributes to the growth of your community and the tax base, because we need taxes in order to build buildings and schools and hospitals. But again, going back to local control, I don't think that the state should have a say in whether or not Moses Lake wants a data center or Kittitas wants a data center. That's a local decision that should be made by local leaders in the community. Ultimately, though, I think it's a bit of a distraction if the state's really pushing about the data centers, because without energy, which 13th district lacks in energy and water, you can't build a data center. So the data centers are going to have to bring their own resources.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
So data centers, they can be an economic boom on local communities. Construction jobs, it's permanent jobs to run them. But they are also a tremendous tax on local resources. And the last thing I want to see is a big corporation come in and not pay for the cost of infrastructure. That can't be passed down onto local ratepayers. I don't want to see somebody's tax bill, their power bill skyrocket because of an increased load. We've got the potential for brownouts in Grant County within the next couple of years. And so we need to be mindful of the resources we have. We need to take care of them. We need to know that citizens come first, and we shouldn't take away from our farmers and ranchers to supplement another industry. They can work together. In my career, I've worked with data centers, and they're a big benefit, but it needs to be done responsibly and decisions made at a local level.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Okay, well, we're going to move on to our third and final prepared question. We're going to move on to our third and final prepared question that the candidates have received, and then we'll go from there to additional questions. If you're an audience member and you've got a burning question, now's a great time to get that written down and pass it to the center, and volunteers will come and pick that up from you. So, Mr. Thompson, you'll go first on this next question. What economic development initiatives do you believe have the greatest potential to benefit the district? And how would you collaborate with colleagues from both parties to make them a reality?
I think we need to invest in what we know, whether it's agriculture and ranching, it's manufacturing. What's going on at the Port of Moses Lake is extremely impressive. You have companies like Stoke Industries building reusable rockets out there. I got a chance to tour the facility, and it was one of the most impressive things I've seen. We've got tourism that we can tap into to a greater degree. So I think we have the resources. I think when we can get Olympia out of the way and we can make decisions locally for these businesses and for these opportunities for citizens, I think that's where the growth is going to come from. Invest in what you know and take care of it and grow it.
Thank you. Ms. Martinez, same question.
Sorry, repeat the question? Because I was writing notes, sir.
Sure. What economic development initiatives do you believe have the greatest potential to benefit the district? And how would you collaborate with colleagues from both parties to make them a reality?
Thank you for the question. So, you can't grow without power. You can build a little bit, but you can't build like you want to, if you want to, without energy. And that's a big issue for 13th District. We need to find ways to diversify our power, our energy, and that sometimes means private entities might need to provide their own energy, while PUD and PSC continue to try and find ways to get the power to the people that need it. Transmission is a problem for Grant County. We've got the power, but we don't have the transmission. PSC or Kittitas County doesn't have much power left. And then there's the natural gas ban coming down the pike. So again, one of those issues that Olympia thinks they know the best answer, but we need to be able to respectfully make our point that their issues are not our issues.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Okay, we'll now transition to non-prepared questions. So these are questions the candidates have not seen. This is when it gets really interesting. So I hope you're on the edges of your seats and you've popped your popcorn. No more going back to the concession stand. You're not going to want to miss this part of the show, okay? All right. Here we go. Ms. Martinez, I believe you get the first one as far as answering first. In January, when one of the candidates that we've met today, as well as potentially Mr. Myers, will first take office, the state will be entering its third consecutive session facing significant state operating budget deficits. The last two sessions have also included major new tax increases. What is your solution for saving our state's budget woes?
First off is to fight the income tax. They claim it's a millionaire's income tax, but it is going to be affecting all of us because the millionaires can leave Washington at any time. Businesses are deciding not to come and develop here in Washington state because it's just too volatile here when we used to be the state that everybody wanted to come to. So repealing or stopping the income tax, there are different ways and different groups that are doing that. And I've supported the initiative. The other thing is really accountability and transparency. Where are all of these tax dollars that the Olympia continues to collect from us? Where are they going? Are they being spent wisely? Or are they being wasted? We as taxpayers should know where our money's going. Sorry, I lost track.
You're at time, so that's convenient.
Yeah.
That's convenient. Mr. Thompson, same question.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure, I'd be happy to. In January, when one of you will be starting your first session as a new legislator, the state will also be entering its third consecutive legislative session facing significant state operating budget deficits. The last two sessions have also included major new taxes. What is your solution to our state's budget woes?
Right off bat, you gotta kill the income tax. The attacking millionaires on there is a marketing ploy.
Please pull up your microphone a little bit, Mr. Thompson.
Better.
Thank you.
So the kill the income tax, it's chasing businesses away by the droves, it's chasing business creators away. in 1914 when we had a federal income tax put in and it was only taxing the top 1%. We all pay taxes now, so we know where that slippery slope goes. You can't spend more than you bring in, and leveling taxes relentlessly does no good. So all you can do is you can go in there and fight for sensible spending. We spend too much on effectively too little, and we get overburdened by taxes from every angle. Look at our gas tax. Go, pay at the pump. You see it every day. So that's what it is. It's stop the spending and curtail the taxes, or you won't have a tax base to tax, quite frankly.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Okay, we'll move on to our next question, and I believe, Mr. Thompson, you'll have the opportunity to answer first for this question. How would you address housing affordability in both rural and urban areas of the 13th Legislative District?
We've currently got a gap in our housing stock. When the cost of the house around here can be $500,000 and $600,000, but the average household income is in the high 90s to low 100s before taxes, you do not have the ability to save and put a down payment down. And so we need smaller form factors in housing, duplexes, quadplexes, cottage style housing, things that allow families to start entering to the market and building equity versus renting, in which every time you pay rent, the next rent check comes, you haven't saved anything because there's no equity in where you are. So allow families to get into the market with more cost-effective solutions and allow them to then move up the housing ladder to get to that house.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Ms. Martinez? Same question.
Yeah, I think everybody throughout the state is struggling with affordable housing. I think in the rural counties, districts, it's even more difficult because we usually have lower wages, lower income. For example, Grant County's median income is mostly in the 70s, so a little bit less than Kittitas County. I would really work on what is causing the housing to be so expensive that kids, our children can't purchase a home. And that would be, again, the overregulation that Olympia has passed because of silly requirements, for windows and energy. And while I appreciate good clean air, if I have a leaky window, that's not going to affect the climate as much as, say, all the fires that are going on. So there's a lot of burdensome regulations and a limit on what we can do in the UGA that I would be working on to make that more affordable.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Now let's switch gears a little bit. Ms. Martinez, you'll have the opportunity to answer this question first. Our district is experiencing an increased risk of wildfires due to a 4-year drought and warmer temperatures. Considering federal budget cuts to the Forest Service and other resource agencies, how can the state and local communities allocate adequate resources for firefighting and wildfire prevention measures?
As I mentioned a little bit earlier about wildfires, again, we all want clean water, clean air, but if those dollars from the Climate Commitment Act are going to something else instead of fighting fires or trying to prevent them by cleaning up our forests, then that's not a good way of allocating funds. I see it from another perspective as far as a healthcare perspective. And as an asthma sufferer, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm pretty shaky. It's because I'm having to use my asthma inhaler more because of the smoke in the air. And so we also see not only businesses burning down and homes being lost, but we're seeing the increase in accessing healthcare, if healthcare is available for all those people. Oftentimes they're seniors who struggle with respiratory issues. So I think we've all gotten used to fire being kind of normal every summer, but let's not think of it as normal. Let's address it as best we can.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Mr. Thompson, same question.
I think a lot of it, I mean, you can't change environmental factors. Droughts are droughts, temperatures go up, they go up, and we have to deal with them. But we can prepare our forests to deal with them ahead of time, and that comes through smart thinning of forests. Right now, you can go into forests and see a tremendous amount of waste and debris that's just kindling. It's just waiting to go up across our forest. So it's forest management first, and it's going to take dollars. It's going to take investment from the state, and and also working with our logging companies to thin these forests so that we get rid of the small and weak trees. We can have big, strong, abundant forests, but we've got to manage them, and it's going to take dollars. We're not seeing the same dollars from the feds right now, but that's one area in which, being in the legislature, you can advocate for your state.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
If it's a rebuttal, but a comment? I don't know. What a rebuttal is.
A rebuttal would be if you disagree with something that you think you have a better solution for, or you think is incorrect, that would be a rebuttal opportunity. If you have an additional comment, I would suggest that you try to work that into perhaps your next answer.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Okay. Moving on, I believe, Mr. Thompson, it's your opportunity to answer this question first. If elected, you'll be a junior and freshman member of an overwhelmingly minority party in Olympia. How will you be effective in that role, given that situation, for the residents of the 13th Legislative District?
So when I was elected to the Ellensburg City Council in 2023, I was essentially a junior freshman in that setup. And I found ways to advocate for things that I thought were necessary, items like protecting the Happy Feet daycare and advocating against the sleep center that was about to be put in right next to it. But I've also found ways to separate people from policy, talk to my council members. A lot of coffees and a lot of lunches that you don't see. That's really where the effort comes in. It's meeting with individuals that you think are on the other side of an issue, and it's finding the common ground. I mean, we've got these 20-80 issues. 20% of issues, 80% of us agree on. Let's go after those issues first. So, first day in Olympia, it's going to be sending out emails to individuals from the left and saying, let's have coffee.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Ms. Martinez.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. If elected, you'll be a junior and freshman legislator member of an overwhelmingly minority party in Olympia. How will you be effective, given that set of circumstances, in that role as a legislator for the residents of the 13th Legislative District?
As I mentioned earlier, I've been working at the state level with the different legislators in the Republican caucus. Many of them have endorsed me, or I should say, some of them have endorsed me. Some have been, would like to support me, but stay out of it because it's R on R, and I understand that. So, I spent a lot of time watching the committee hearings and watching the floor debate and testifying. So, I believe that I'm a step ahead of either of the other candidates. I know the people there. I even know some of the Democrats, just because our Republican caucus has to work with the other caucus to get anything done. Until we have balance, or the majority, that's the reality. So you want somebody who's able to communicate with the other side and try and find a way to get them to understand the differences between West Side and Central Washington. So, communication.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. All right, let's go back to finances just a little bit. Ms. Martinez, this is your opportunity to answer first. Washington faces competing demands for funding education, transportation, public safety, healthcare, the list goes on. What principles would guide your decisions about state spending versus budget reductions and potential changes to the state's overall tax structure?
Well, I don't support a tax in Washington. You know, it's like any business or household. Once you're not making enough money to meet, you know, your bills, you got to start looking at what you're spending on. You know, is it that $6 cup of coffee from Dutch Brothers or Starbucks every day? You know, that in the end, in the month, is a big expense that really you don't need. You can go without. So looking at what we're actually spending money on, not utilizing or thinking the general fund is just your, you know, I don't have enough money, I'm gonna go grab this, I'm gonna add another tax. We really need to think and consider what is being spent on the general fund. I know that education is a priority for the legislature, but it's kind of also their excuse to just try and grab more money that ends up in the general fund, and then we don't really know what's going on, where it's gone, or it's not going to education to actually improve outcomes.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Mr. Thompson, same question.
Can you please repeat the question?
Sure. Washington faces competing demands for funding education, transportation, public safety, healthcare, the list goes on and on. What principles would guide your decisions about state spending versus budget reductions and potential changes to the state's overall tax structure?
You know, it really does come down to responsible spending at some point. I think most citizens understand that you need taxes at some level. You need roads, you need the police department, you need the fire department. But we, as citizens, we have lost track, really, of where all the money's going. Where's $12 billion going? When they brought in the lottery system, they said that's going to cure educational spending. Okay, well, here again, like, we need more money for education. Well, what happened to the money from the lottery system? And so when you have government reaching in on all of your pockets at the same time, and then really not being held to account, it puts us in the system we're in today. One example of spending that blew my mind, even though, you know, on a spreadsheet it seems small, was the nearly 8% salary raise that the governor gave himself and his staff at a time when our frontline government workers are getting a 2% raise. It shows you where their priorities are. It's Olympia focused, it's urban focused, and as a legislator from District 13, it's going to be fight the spending and use those tax dollars responsibly.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. All right, we are cooking right along here. Remember, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask the candidates, you still have an opportunity. If you want to just raise your hand, volunteer will bring you a card and a pen if you don't have one, and we'll get that question written down and get a chance to ask it of our candidates tonight. Until then, we have a few more. Are you guys feeling good?
Still upright. Time's
flying by, isn't it? It's like you just got here.
It is.
I know. Okay, let's move on. We'll go a little broader in this question. And I believe, Mr. Thompson, it's your chance to answer first. What do you see as the greatest challenges? That didn't sound like good English. What do you see as the greatest challenges? Maybe it is. Facing urban and rural communities in your district, and how would you address them? Policy, what do you see are the greatest challenges? Maybe we'll have to get a ruling from the judges.
You know, in our district, we don't have the large urban area. We don't have the Seattle to Tacoma. And so our district, especially as I've driven back and forth for a few thousand miles worth at this point, I think is a lot more in tune with itself than we think. And I've seen that with, again, with the Port of Moses Lake and how it's working with Bend Community College to drive new engineers and pilots and technicians into the workforce to support us here, but at the same time, protecting our farmers and ranchers. So inside the district, I don't see a big divide. The biggest challenge really is making sure that our district has the resources we need from Olympia to meet the challenges we face.
Thank you. Ms. Martinez?
The question again?
Sure. What do you see as, or what are, the greatest challenges facing rural and urban communities in the district, and how would you address them?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is trying to get legislators on the west side to understand that they don't understand rural Washington and stop making decisions for us. I don't like the cookie cutter policy, the one size fits all. We need to be a little more determined to work for all of the state, not just the west side. The big challenge, challenges are power and water. Again, we don't have enough power. We're not going to get more power for another 10, 20 years probably. Water, we're in a drought where Yakima is, in which services Kittitas County. In Grant County, we have water, but we don't have legal access. Why? When originally we were supposed to have legal access. So there are a lot of ways that Olympia isn't paying attention to rural Washington, and that, to me, is the biggest challenge. If we can get that taken care of, then we're off on a good start.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Okay, let's switch back and go to finances again. I know that's your favorite topic. It's everyone's favorite topic when we're talking about Olympia. Ms. Martinez, I believe it's your chance to answer first again. What do you believe are the legislature's most important responsibilities in supporting K through 12 education, higher education, community colleges, and workforce training? And where would you place your highest priorities if elected?
Well, we spend a lot of money on education, and yet our kids aren't coming out in a good way. You know, test scores are down. They're not learning their basics. Honestly, I would, or speaking freely, I would allow parents to try and make those decisions as to how or where and when their children are going to be educated. I grew up in the public school district, a small one, so we lacked funding. But maybe other areas have private schools, and that should not be. That decision to do private school should not be held against you, and you not get the money that the state is responsible for giving for education dollars. I absolutely support workforce training as a 2-year registered nurse. Tech and shorter programs get workers out quicker.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
Can you repeat that?
What do you believe are the legislature's most important responsibilities in supporting K through 12 education, higher education, community colleges, and workforce training? And where would you place your highest priorities if elected?
I think when we look at priorities in K through 12, we do have students that are graduating behind the curve, that the goal is the graduation rate, not the outcome of the student. And in the basement of the family farm in Idaho, I have a report. It's a test, an exit exam for a 7th grader. And I can tell you that right now, most seniors graduating high school could not pass that test. With all the funding in the world, our priorities are very much shifted. I wish we had more than 60 seconds for this one, for sure. Absolutely support workforce training. I saw that Big Bend Community College, the types of careers that are being started there, and the opportunities that are there are fundamental to this district and really to this state.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I'm sure you probably would like more than 60 seconds to answer any of these questions, which thankfully you've got plenty of campaigning time between now and the primary, so you'll have lots of opportunity to talk about those. And speaking of questions that you might need more than 60 seconds to answer, here's a doozy for you. Mr. Thompson, you get to go first this time. Governor Ferguson recently announced the creation of the Washington's Water Future Initiative. In that announcement, he acknowledged the 4th consecutive year of drought in some places in Washington, especially here. As a legislator, what would you do to address long-term water supply needs for this region?
You know, I think you have to find a balance between environmentalism and conservatism. We have to have access to water that we already have in the ground. One of the big issues with water that we face right now is the existence of chemicals that are in the ground right now. An example would be the old Larson Air Force Base, where various foams and retardants were used that are now coming up and being tested for in our crops and our drinking water. And so I think we need to, one, take care of the water that we do have and get contaminants out of the ground. And two, I think we are going to have to be able to tap water wells and get the water that is there. Our ranchers have dealt with this. You know, the Kings dealt with this in terms of stock ponds very recently, very tragic.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Okay, Ms. Martinez, the same question.
Can you repeat the question, sorry?
Sure. Governor Ferguson recently announced the creation of his Washington's Water Future Initiative. And in that announcement, he acknowledged the 4th consecutive year of drought in some places in Washington, especially here. As a legislator, what would you do to address the water supply needs for this region?
Well, that's going to take a coalition because there are so many hands in the water, so to speak. There's federal, there's state, and then, you know, your local access to water if you have it. You know, some people don't even think we're in a drought. So education to help people understand that, yes, it is. We are in a drought, especially in this area. It has nothing to do with whether or not you support climate commitment. It is a drought. That's what it is. So making sure that we can work with the federal and the state agencies so that we can be able to access water. Basically put our straw into the West Canal over here and the East Canal over there. Our cities are just as important, because they obviously support the people that are working. So we have to find balance between ag, technology, industry, and cities.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Okay. Well, candidates, nicely done. The questions portion of the forum is now over. We are going to transition to 60-second closing statements. Because we began with Ms. Martinez and with opening statements, we will now transition and we will start with Mr. Thompson for closing statements. Mr. Thompson, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you so much for everybody that has shown up today. This is what democracy is. It's two candidates sitting down and answering questions. And, you know, it's a process that when you're up here, it's a little nerve-wracking, but I think it's necessary, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I want to thank the Chamber and the League of Women Voters for allowing this opportunity to be provided. And, I ask for your vote because, I'm fighting for my family. I'm fighting for my 3-year-old. I'm fighting for my house. I'm fighting for a paycheck. And I'm fighting those fights for all of you. I started that on the Ellensburg City Council, fighting for families, and I will continue to do that if I am blessed with your vote and confidence in going to Olympia. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Ms. Martinez, your closing statement, please.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out on such a beautiful day. League of Women Voters and Kittitas Valley Chamber of Commerce providing this opportunity. Our district is really big. I've been through all parts of the district, but I can't be in all parts at the same time. So I appreciate opportunities like this. The voters really, we're all Republicans. Clearly we think about the same things or think the same way or very similar ways on how to deal with the issues. So ultimately the question for you is, do you want somebody with experience at the state level who has the connections there in Olympia and have developed relationships with the Republican caucus and have shown the ability to talk to people and get through to them rather than just berating them? That's really the decision to be made for you guys, and it's not an easy one.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. All right, candidates, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Thanks for doing such a great job. Before you leave, Mr. Thompson, I just want to again acknowledge the fact that you were in the hot seat tonight, not just figuratively, but kind of literally, given the fact that it's a little warm in this building. I also want to acknowledge the sacrifice, the personal sacrifice that you as candidates make simply by running for office. It's not an easy thing to sit down with your family and decide to take this leap of faith, so to speak, and to put your name on a big sign and ultimately on a ballot and ask all of the citizens of your community ultimately to judge you worthy or not for their vote. So that's a huge sacrifice, that's a huge commitment. It deserves a ton of respect, win or lose, and I just want to personally thank you for that. Thank you very much. You know how that first half just kind of leads you forward with all kinds of descriptive character development, and then all of the really good stuff happens in the second half? Well, that's what you're here for tonight, right? Thank you for being so responsive and getting to your seats so quickly. Just in case there's somebody new who just came from the second half of the show, once again, I'm Paul Jewell, your moderator tonight, and this is the Candidates Forum up here at the Roslyn Masonic Temple, and it's hosted by the League of Women Voters and the Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce. We are moving on to our prosecuting attorney candidates. We have 3 of those tonight. I have had a chance to briefly meet with them before we reconvened, and they assure me that they understand the rules and they don't need them re-explained. Now, I'm a little skeptical. I know you probably are too, because they're lawyers. So we're going to be really tight on the rules with these guys tonight. Now, they also are going to be limited to the same time frame for their answers. And that's probably going to be especially hard for this group. So please, I may need some audience assistance in keeping them to the 60-second responses and the 90-second intros. But you are all professionals. You have done this before with stakes much higher than this, I'm sure. And so I have full confidence that we'll be able to move forward. So, to start with introductions, we have Jody Hammond here to my left. Next to her is Aaron Ryman, and then to his left is Patricia Todd. We will start with opening statements in that order, and we will then switch. So for instance, when I ask the first question, Mr. Ryman, you will go first, and then Mrs. Todd, you will go next, Mrs. Hammond last, and then we will switch again, where Mrs. Todd will go first, Mrs. Hammond second, Mr. Ryman third. I am guaranteed to blow that at some time this evening. So please, when I get it wrong, just remind me of what order we're in. Any questions, candidates, before we get started?
No, sir.
All right. And the audience is ready as well. Remember, audience members, this is not just an opportunity for you to listen, which is a great opportunity, but also an opportunity for you to ask questions. So again, we do have volunteers today. They are in the back. We have provided cards and pens. If you have a question that you'd like to jot down that I can ask the candidates, please take advantage of doing that. Like the last panel, we did provide some pre-questions for the candidates, and then we'll move into the unscripted, unrehearsed portion of our show this evening. I will remind you once again, I know you all have one of these fancy little devices, that are created by people in Silicon Valley and otherwise. If yours is not turned to silent, because maybe you made a phone call or watched a TikTok video during the interim, during the break, please take an opportunity now to turn that down, turn it off. You don't want to be the person whose ringtone that, is a really embarrassing pop song from the 1980s comes on in the middle of someone's answering a question. Candidates, please do the same. That would be really bad. All right, let's move right on. Opening question is really your 90-second intro. Mrs. Hammond, you'll go first. Please introduce yourself, share why you're running, and what you hope to accomplish in your first year of elected.
Thank you to the League and the Chamber. Thank you, Mr. Jewell, for being here to moderate us tonight. For those of you who are here and those who are watching the recording or online, my name is Jody Hammond. I've been a prosecutor for 22 years, and I live and work in Kittitas County for the last 15 as a prosecutor. My current role is Chief Criminal Deputy in the Prosecutor's Office, which means I oversee the criminal side of the office, managing our staff of 8 attorneys on the criminal side, as well as being involved in the management of the 5 civil attorneys at both sides of the office for leadership and administration. I am running for prosecutor because I was recruited. This county has had the same prosecutor for 32 years, my boss, Mr. Greg Zempel, who is retiring. And beginning about 4 years ago, he started talking to me that when he looked around the office and the county, there was one person that he knew had the qualities to lead the office, and it was me. I've never been a politician. I've never run for office before. It was not something I saw in my future ever. But with the confidence of someone who's done the job for 32 years in our county, and with the opportunity presenting itself, as I looked around, I came to the same conclusion as him, that there is no one who's more passionate about the work of justice in our community, protecting victims, holding offenders accountable, and providing excellent civil representation to our community. And so, although it was a very difficult decision, because it was not something I ever saw myself doing, and even now, sometimes in the morning when I look at myself in the mirror and I think, wow, you're a politician now. It's tough, but that's why I'm running.
Thank you, Mrs. Hammond. Mr. Ryman, same opportunity. Opening statement, please.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Aaron Ryman, and I'm a 5th-generation Washingtonian on my dad's side and a 3rd-generation Washingtonian on my mom's side. Both sets of grandparents ended up in Quincy, and that's where they met. Actually, there's a museum named after my family in Quincy. Maybe you've driven by it. It's called the Ryman Simmons Museum. It's right there on the main drag as you're driving towards Wenatchee. That's also the house where my grandfather was born. So I have deep roots here in central Washington. I've lived in Washington my whole life, except when military service, that was either my service or my dad's service took me out of the state, or when college took me out of the state. Grew up in Wenatchee, went to college at the University of Michigan, and then graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in English. Thought I wanted to be a teacher. When that kind of fell through, I thought, what am I going to do with this English degree? So I thought law school. So I've been an attorney now for 26 years after graduating from Gonzaga. I'm running because this is a unique opportunity. As Jody said, this position's been occupied for the last 32 years by the same person. So now is a unique opportunity. And and it's time for me to throw my name in the hat. I've got the experience to do the job. I've done 22 years of military service with the Coast Guard and Navy JAG. Having unique military leadership experience is going to be critical in this job. One of the big things that nobody's talking about that's going to be happening now and over the course of the next 10 years is we're going to be in competition with other offices for attorneys, so that's going to be a challenge for us.
Thank you, Mr. Ryman. Mrs. Todd, your opening statement, please.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Todd, and I am a servant leader and a team player. I'm someone that is ready to treat everyone fairly and apply the law equally. What I want to accomplish when I think about how I got here and what I want to accomplish requires a brief story. I became a prosecutor on Main Street. I was marching to court, and I weighed on me the importance that I had of being the voice of a victim, the voice of our community. And none of that would have happened without a team. It's not enough just to say you're a team player, but how can you demonstrate that? There was a case where, just to crystallize all these team players, where brave victims called out to Kitcom. Talented law enforcement assisted. Amazing staff at the prosecutor's office processed cases. The clerk's office had to work hard to get that cause number for us to be in court, have court administration make the time, have a judge make the time, and a prosecutor, me, walking down Main Street, knowing that I was going to be a voice for our community. This is the reason I'm running. I care deeply about this county. I'm ready to serve with 20 years of legal experience, 15 of those deep experiences in civil, 5 in criminal, and I have leadership, managing teams twice the size of our current prosecutor's office with twice the budget. I'm the candidate who has both the temperament and the skills to lead day one.
Thank you, Mrs. Todd. All right, we will now transition to the prepared questions. I was going to say predetermined questions. These are questions that the candidates were provided before tonight's forum and had an opportunity to prepare for. We'll ask these questions before we move on to the impromptu questions. Mr. Ryman, you will go first, then Mrs. Todd, then Mrs. Hammond for this question. The question is as follows. Prosecutors have significant discretion in deciding whether and how to charge cases. What principles guide those decisions?
Thank you. So when I've been a prosecutor and when I've been responsible for charging cases, I review the report and I look to see if there's an allegation that's supported by the facts. If the facts support that a crime's been committed, then generally I'll charge it. So that jumps a step though. One of the steps that I consider is this a case that can be better resolved through diverting the case to a pre-filing diversion? When I first got to my position when I was the city prosecutor for Ellensburg, I met with Greg and with Jody and we talked about reinitiating pre-filing diversion that had gone dormant. We brought it back and for the city we were referring early and first-time offenders into the diversion program. That's one of the things that I want to make more robust as I become, if you elect me to the position. But otherwise, once we jump over those steps of, is this a case that can be properly diverted, or if there's no facts, then we don't charge it.
Thank you, Mr. Ryman. Mrs. Todd, same question.
This question is really a three-part question. It talks about whether, how, and the principles. When you talk about the principles, this is a hard question. And it requires us looking at multiple factors. Number one is, are you serving the law? That's where it should start. When I first came to the office, I inherited a giant felony caseload. And I thought, whoa, dive right in, this is a lot. And one of the first cases I saw, the facts didn't fit the law. And I was very worried that I was going to be asked to do something that didn't follow the law. But that was not the culture of how we looked at cases. And I quickly said, hey, if the law doesn't follow the facts, what do I do here? What's your guidance? What's the principle? And I learned early on that the best lawyers and the best offices, they have to follow the law. And then the next component is, does it serve the community? That's the victim, the overall community. And does it serve justice? And so when you get to the nuts and bolts of it, that's the guiding principle you're going to use. Does it follow the law? Does it serve the community, especially the victim?
Thank you, Mrs. Todd. And then finally, Mrs. Hammond.
Thank you. This is a great question for the community. There's a lot of questions about what we do, and actually there are laws that guide almost everything we do. There's a statute, RCW 13.70.044, that is all about prosecution standards, charging standards, discretion, and plea agreements. And so the first guiding principle is the law, the statutes that tell us what factors should a prosecutor's office consider when making filing decisions. There are also ethical rules, so the rules of professional conduct that apply to attorneys. There are special ethical rules that apply to prosecutors, RPC 3.8. And again, those special rules that apply to prosecutors inform prosecutors about the kinds of charging decisions that they need to make because they're held to an ethical standard by a state professional association. And thirdly, the principle that guides charging has to do with the community values. And this is broken down into different areas because the community values includes not just what our community thinks about what charges should be charged, but what the victim thinks about a case and what the history the office has. So the law and the community values have to be what guide a principle in charging.
Thank you, Mrs. Hammond. All right, let's move on to our next prepared question. Mrs. Todd will have the opportunity to answer first, then Mrs. Hammond, then Mr. Ryman. This is the question. Public understanding of the justice system is important to public confidence. If elected, what would be your highest priority for educating the public about the work of the prosecuting attorney's office, and what specific strategies would you use to achieve that goal?
The highest priority I have for educating the public to increase the confidence in the prosecutor's office is accountability. We talk a lot of that about with offenders, but we also need to be accountable as a prosecutor's office. The community, the county should know what we do and how we're doing it. Some of the easy ways and strategies to do this is to make public our annual report. It may be nice for you all to have easy access on the internet to the public version of what the prosecutor's office is doing. This will help explain that it's more than just criminal. It involves really important civil work. That's an easy win. Some of the deeper wins that we can work on is outreach. How often are you interacting with someone from the prosecutor's office? What we do is not simple. It's multi-layered. It's complicated. It takes many individuals. Some of those outreach efforts can include more volunteering, more community involvement, and making ourselves accessible so people in the public can get their questions answered and also provide feedback when it's appropriate.
Thank you. Mrs. Hammond.
Thank you. Most of the time, the public knows about what the prosecutor's office is doing is because they're interacting with us, either because they're a victim or a criminal defendant or an attorney or court staff or a witness or maybe a juror. And this is necessary. This involvement by the public with the prosecutor's office is the best way for the public to know about what we're doing, and it has to be so. Because as we talk about being public-facing with our annual report, which is published yearly, part of what we do, most of what we do, is very sensitive in nature. And to be out in the public talking about all of the things we do undermines the privacy and the interests of victims in a way that would be something we would never want to do. So the interactions have to be those that happen naturally. Could we be doing more? Yes, but I also have an office full of prosecutors who have too much work to do and not enough time to do it. And so the accountability piece comes from soliciting feedback, which we do regularly from our victims, from our attorney friends, from our court staff, from the people who are interacting, from our jurors, the people who are interacting with the prosecutor's office. How are we doing? Everybody in our community is reading the paper, so we get lots of feedback that way.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Ryman. Sorry, I think I had a fourth grade teacher named Rymer. I think I'm confusing that. Sorry, Mr. Ryman. Mr. Ryman.
There's the, so while I've been campaigning, knocking on doors, meeting people at the markets, talking to young people, I've learned that there are a lot of questions about what we do. So the common question is, hey, so what's your opinion about the justice system or about prosecuting? And so I know that people crave the information. And I know that from my time when I was the city prosecutor for the city of Ellensburg, that no matter how many efforts that you put forward, the public just necessarily won't take it. So when the city does Coffee with Council, they have Ellensburg 101, they have City University. And then yet people still come and say, hey, I never knew about that. So it's a two-way street. If the people want to know the information, it's available, and I want to make it available, and I want to go to these things and maybe have a booth at the market and come up to the Roslyn market and just make ourselves generally available to answer the questions.
Thank you. Finally, Mrs. Todd, same question?
I started this one. I'm happy to go more in depth.
I told you I was going to blow it, and I did. All right. So, we're going to Mrs. Hammond for the next question. I'm sorry about that, candidates. Let's just keep plowing through. Third question, third prepared question. How will you foster a positive workplace culture within the prosecutor's office?
Thank you for the question. I recently actually heard Mrs. Todd say that she had never met such a dedicated staff of people, public servants, until she came to work in the prosecutor's office. And having been part of the management team for the last 9 years and hiring the majority of the staff in our office, I felt really proud to hear her say that, because the work that we do in our office is really difficult. Some of the people who come into our office have never dealt with the criminal justice system. They don't know about courts, they don't know about police, they don't know about the civil side, they don't understand processes, and the learning curve when somebody comes to work in our office is almost straight uphill. So the thing to do to create a positive, or to maintain the positive office morale that we have, is to recognize the hard jobs that we have, to have some fun at work, to make work a place that people want to be. When we do interviews, I often tell people, I spend more time in my week with the people inside this office than I do my own family. And so you're going to be sure that I'm going to work hard to make it a fun place to work and make it a place that people enjoy to work. But it's also really difficult. So we have to acknowledge the difficulty as well as enjoy the moments that we can.
Thank you, Mrs. Hammond. Mr. Ryman.
Thanks. So during my opening, I started to talk about the competition that we're going to have with other prosecutors' offices and public defenders' offices. So that's because the state is putting a cap on the number of cases that defense attorneys can take. What that means for everybody else is that there's going to be a need for more attorneys. Where are those attorneys going to come from? They're going to come from other offices and out of law school. So we're going to be competing with those people, with those other agencies. Yakima had a $20,000 bonus. Mason County was offering bonuses. The best way that we maintain high morale and good feelings in the office is keep the people that we have. Make sure they feel appreciated and rewarded. And I'm going to meet with them so that they know that I have a genuine interest and care about them personally and professionally. That's one of the things I learned in the military too, is build up your people. Make them try to meet and address their personal and professional goals so that you can elevate them, and as you elevate them, everybody else is elevated too.
Thank you. Finally, Mrs. Todd.
Workplace culture makes or breaks an organization. Starts with the basics. Saying hello to everyone when you come in. That's a key part of what we're doing. People who work hard, they want to know that they've been seen, that they matter, and they're doing purposeful work. But the basics aren't enough. We need to go beyond the basics. One huge part of how we can increase this idea of building a culture, having people that want to stay, is making sure that we're giving opportunities for growth. What development is an individual attorney needing in order to do better, to reach higher? And also, what cross-training opportunities are we providing? We've had too much turnover in the prosecutor's office in the attorney roles. We can do a better job of that by working on this culture, by making sure people feel seen and that their work matters. This is something that is like tending to a garden. You do it day by day. Small moments add up each and every time, because we have great staff who do great work, and we need to keep our great attorneys.
Thank you, Mrs. Todd. Okay, we're now going to transition away from the prepared questions that candidates received ahead of time, and we're going to move on to the questions that you have provided and others have provided. I'll just remind members of the audience that now is a great opportunity. We do have some questions here that the candidates have not seen, but if you have something that you'd like to ask the candidate, this is a participatory program, but the way you participate is by raising your hand and having one of the volunteers bring you a card and a pen and writing that question down very clearly with legible writing, so it's easy for an old guy like me with glasses to read. But I hope you popped your popcorn like we said the last time, got the slushie, because this is the exciting part of the show. I believe we are moving to Mr. Ryman as the first opportunity to answer this question. And this one comes direct from the audience. Mr. Ryman, given that this position is one of the highest paid in the county, what are the most effective day-to-day job duties that you would do as the elected prosecutor?
What are the most effective?
What are the most effective
day-to-day duties? It's a smallish office, meaning that we need to squeeze all we can from everybody there. So one of the most effective things that I'll do is maintain a caseload. Everybody's going to have to maintain a caseload. The position can't be just purely administrative. So that's going to be effective. I'm going to share the load with everybody else and work to sub in for other people. We're going to be cross-trained so that people can go on vacations and they don't feel like their caseload is just piling up while they're gone, or they feel like they have to pull teeth from somebody to get them to sub in for them. Everybody needs to feel that they're all rowing in the same direction. So that's going to be one of the most effective things I do, is to meet with each of the new attorneys, or each of the staff, and to see where I can help promote them and meet their goals so they can make this place, as Jody said, it's a place where they're going to be spending most of their time, so they can be happy doing it.
Thank you, Mr. Ryman. Mrs. Todd.
Two things come to mind when you think about how to be effective as a leader. The first thing is you have to remove obstacles for your team. Be thoughtful about what your teammates are doing. And if they need more resources to do a job, if they need an adjustment to an aspect of their job, that's a huge part of someone being productive, is making sure they have all the tools to be successful. And then the second thing is fostering this idea of no surprises. You don't want your top leader to be ever surprised. And so you want to foster communication by being available, by making time, and being really clear about when you have time and when you don't have time. And the whole concept is you're sharing the load. And you're also handling difficult things that could involve a lot of discretion. They involve high levels of confidentiality. And they're also maybe something that the team hasn't seen before. By having this kind of a expectation that people will come and talk to the prosecutor at every level, not just attorneys, that means paralegals, legal assistants, victim witness advocates, front staff, even IT. You want to be sure everyone has a voice and an ear to the prosecutor.
Thank you. Ms. Hammond, same question.
Thank you. My answer to the question has to do with, effective day-to-day. And I think the most important thing for people to realize is you have to lead by example. I think a lot of people have thoughts about what people in management do, and you hear it. You hear the grumblings and the complaining. And so the two things that immediately came to mind is, number one, you have to be present. You literally have to be in your office. Your door has to be open. You have to be available. You have to be responsive to emails. You have to answer the phone when it rings, and you have to be present. And number two, you have to communicate, because even as much as you want to be, I would love it if I got a whole day to sit in my office, but I'm in court and I have meetings and I know my boss does the same thing. And I think there's frustration with the staff when there are things they don't know about what's happening. When I started in the prosecutor's office, nobody used an out-of-office reminder. Nobody used the Outlook calendar. And so communicating and making sure that people know not just that you are available, but where you are when you aren't. I'm going to a meeting, I'm going to be here, here's the time I have for you, and making yourself available.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to transition now, and I believe Mrs. Todd, you'll answer this question. It's been mentioned that this election represents a pretty big transition for the prosecuting attorney's office here in Kittitas County. If elected, you'd be taking over the office from a long-time leader represented by the current retiring prosecutor. What would you keep in place that exists currently, and what would you change?
This is the cusp of a generational handoff. And when you think about how you can move forward is you have to recognize where you came from. We all build on those who came before us. This office had a very strong reputation of not being political. We represent everyone. We fight for justice. That will all stay the same. People will be treated fairly, and the law will be followed equally. When it comes to what we can change, we're going to need to unify and to modernize. There are aspects of how an office with 2 individuals running in the same place brings up lots of ideas. We're going to have to bring those together because we're all working for the same goal: justice for everyone, representation of the county to protect taxpayers. And the next thing we need to look critically at is modernizing. Are we using the best staff attorney ratios? Are we using the staff in the most effective ways? Are we using our tools, our case-based management tools? Are we using those in the effective ways? Those are the big things that we'll need to look at as the next prosecutor takes over.
Thank you. Mrs. Hammond.
Thank you. Greg has been here for 32 years, and love him or hate him, he's done some really great things in our office, and whoever takes over the office is building on something really great, and things that are really great are the focus on victims. He has been a champion for victims' rights for years, a passion that I also share. That is something that we will keep in place. As well as, he's very approachable. You know, in my previous question, I talked about being available. While sometimes he's difficult to pin down, when you do have a chance to talk to him, I've never had a conversation with Greg where I don't feel heard. And I think those are things that need to stay the same in the office, that the elected needs to be approachable, and that we need to focus on victims and keep that focus. The things that I would change, it's harder to answer because you don't know what you don't know. Even though I've been in charge of the criminal division for the last 9 years, I've made incredible productivity changes in the criminal office. When I started as the chief criminal, we were still using paper files. And the attorney that I took over for was an attorney who would handwrite her briefs and have her legal assistant type them for her. So seeing that change inspires me for what I can change. Although I don't have a direct answer, I know there are things that I don't know that we'll figure out.
Thank you. Mr. Ryman.
Thank you. So I don't work in the office, so I'm a public defender right now. I've been a prosecutor for most of my 26 years, but right now I'm a public defender, which gives me a unique perspective on how to address cases. But also what that gives me, not working in this office, is a fresh slate. I said a fresh slate, yeah. So I'll go in and I'm going to meet with everybody, and I'm going to find out from them what works and what doesn't work. And we're going to add on the things that work, and the things that don't work, we're going to talk about those and see if there's a reason why they're not working and see if there's a way to make it better. I love metrics. Whenever I've gone into a new place, especially in the military, and I've gone into different offices that were failing, and I've been able to resurrect them and make them successful, I've done it off of metrics. So what metrics do is they help me identify where the bottlenecks are, and where to put the resources at, how to fix those, and then we can talk about what the issues are and making those bottlenecks. So I'm going to work with IT, I'm going to work with the folks who know the issues so we can develop the metrics, that we can track the right information so we can address it.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. Things are getting a little thin up here. I don't know if you guys are noticing, but I'm going through these cards pretty quickly. I'll just remind members of the audience that this is a good opportunity. If you've got a question that you want the next potential prosecuting attorney for the county of Kittitas to be asked, it's a good chance to do it. Think of it as them now on the witness stand, and you're turning the tables, and you get to interrogate an attorney tonight, right? Who would miss that chance? If they sold tickets to that at Disneyland, the line would be long, and you're here for free. So just keep that in mind. We have volunteers who are ready to provide you with a note paper and a pen. All right, this is a two-part question. I believe Mrs. Hammond.
I think on two-part questions, we should get 120 seconds. Just
Nope.
saying.
Sorry. You do get extra credit if you get both parts,
Okay.
however. Only in the minds of yourself.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So two-part question. Mrs. Hammond, you'll be first. So, yeah, let me figure out how to ask this. Prosecutors sometimes face pressure from law enforcement, elected officials, the general public, etc. It's also really important for you to build productive working relationships with other elected officials, law enforcement agencies. You're an elected official, so having a good relationship with the public might be in your best interest as well. How would you build those relationships, maintain those relationships, while still maintaining your independence when making the really difficult decisions?
I love this question. This is something I've practiced my entire career because until you've managed lawyers and worked with law enforcement, you have no idea how crazy and hard those people are to deal with and work with. And it has been the passion of my life to build great working relationships. I always tell the police that I train, this isn't a marriage. We didn't pick each other. We're more like siblings. We're on the same team and we got to work together. And so my answer to this has to do with personality. First of all, you have to be humble. You have to be willing to admit when you're wrong. And secondly, you have to have the kind of character that is willing to stand up, make the right decisions at the right time for the right reasons. Stand in a room with another elected official or the sheriff or the chief of police and say yes when the answer is yes, and say no when the answer is no, and stand behind it. Not because you're gonna break up at the end of the day or not work with that person again, but because that's what truth and justice demands in our community, having the integrity to stand behind your decisions.
Thank you, Mrs. Hammond. Mr. Ryman?
Yeah, so this deals with temperament. It's the temperament of how to work with other people and how to form those relationships. We've all worked in the community in Ellensburg for at least the last 5 years or longer. And so we have relationships with law enforcement, with other elected officials, and so we're each able to dive into that pot and keep it working. When I was the city prosecutor, I was always available. I was the only city prosecutor, and so whenever law enforcement needed to reach me, they had my cell phone. I'd go to change out, turnover during shifts to make sure to address questions. I'd go to important functions when somebody got promoted, or if there was a morale event, when we did like hot cocoa for all the different departments and divisions. So it's showing up, it's making friendships, it's building out those friendships, it's being present for those people that are working with you.
Thank you. Mrs. Todd?
I'm a traditionalist. And one of the best ways to build and maintain relationships is to talk to people. Not the emails, not the snarky last line of that email that can almost always be deleted. This requires picking up the phone. Maybe it requires an in-person meeting. Maybe it requires getting information from a different source and a different person. This is how you build it, with an open mind. You have an active, curious heart about what are they saying? Why are they telling me this? Why is it so important? It's also having a commensurate level of respect. We're on a team with an amazing group of elected officials, with public servants, with staff people, with government employees. And in order to have the best team, you have to recognize you all have something to offer. And when you start with that premise, everyone has something to offer, and can I listen? Can I listen to what they're saying? You've got the right ingredients to build. And then how you maintain it is you continue to evaluate where are your blind spots. You surround yourself with people that will tell you hard things, that will tell you direct truths, so that way you can not only build it, but maintain it.
Thank you very much. Okay, you guys are not going to get away from a financial question because it's only fair. The last group had, I think, 40 or something like that.
We had one that was about our salary.
That's true, yeah, but that wasn't a really fun one. This one's more fun. And Mr. Ryman, we're going to go with you first, then Mrs. Todd, and then finally Mrs. Hammond. Question is, county law and justice systems, which the prosecuting attorney is a major part of, along with courts, law enforcement, supervision, others, right, must make decisions all the time about how to best utilize limited resources. That can, unfortunately, include leaking into decisions about what crimes to prosecute, who to prosecute, who not to prosecute and let go. How will you balance the complexity and the competing interests of justice, accountability, and limited resources?
That's like a 12-part question.
No.
12 minutes.
All right, so this kind of comes back to one of the earlier questions that we talked about, which is prosecutorial discretion and how to charge cases. This just kind of sprinkles in some issues of other accountability and whether or not there's any factors that come in, who to prosecute, what to prosecute. So, the issue of who, no, that should never be an issue that you take into consideration whether or not the person is has a specific role in the community. Maybe they're a teacher, maybe they're law enforcement, maybe they're a federal servant. So we treat everybody the same, and we consider whether or not the person committed the crime, not who they are. So it's an issue of just making sure that we don't ignore our commitment to the public, our commitment to the people who are victimized by the crime, our commitment to our professional responsibilities when we make this decision to charge the cases.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Mrs. Todd.
This is a great question when you talk about where to use your resources. And it's easy to think about, okay, well, the most serious crimes, well, that should have all the resources. But we also have to keep in mind some of the other crimes, the builder crimes, the beginning DUIs that if you get repeated DUIs, it could be a felony. We need to make sure that we're really thinking critically about where we're spending our money and time so we're making the greatest impact. But as we think about prosecuting these crimes and how those resources are used, we also need to think about the civil side. There's 10 attorneys at our office, half do civil and half do criminal, and we need to keep our taxpayers in mind and where are the greatest impacts to taxpayer money. Are we positioning the county in both offensive and defensive position? So we're really covering both the criminal needs and the taxpayer needs because we are working for our whole county and that whole county's financial vitality.
Thank you, Mrs. Hammond.
Thank you. Just a correction, there are 13 attorneys in our office. This is a great question because it highlights the fact that experience matters. Everybody, including lawyers, want the answer to questions to be very black and white. We want to look at the case, we want to say, yep, it's there, no, it's not there. And unfortunately, in real life, it is very, very, very complicated. I've had cases that have taken me days to review at times. I've had investigations that have taken years to complete. And this kind of question highlights the fact that the person that this county elects to this position needs to have the kind of experience that has, for years, made these kinds of complex decisions. Because you cannot do it based on gut. You cannot do it based on feeling. You have to have experience making these decisions and the support of your law enforcement community and your victims, experience in trial, winning trials, and knowing what you can prove at trial to know what should we charge, how do we use the county resources well. The question related to the criminal side of the office, Mrs. Todd brings up a great point about civil, and I'm out of time, but the question was about criminal and charging, and that's the answer.
Thank you, Mrs. Hammond.
I know, I'm sorry.
All right, we're going to move on to our next question. We have a couple of maybe administrative questions and political questions that I want to try to get to. Mrs. Todd, I believe you will answer first this time around. This one did come from the audience. If you think back to your civics classes in middle school, there are 3 branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. Each of those is represented by independently elected officials, some in hybrid ways in county government, but only one represents the legislative branch, and that's the county commissioners. Prosecuting attorney under law has a special relationship with that office. What do you see? How would you handle your relationship as the elected prosecutor with the Board of County Commissioners?
Thank you for the question. Audience participation is why we all do this, why we love being up here. It's your questions we want to answer the most. When I served on the civil team for just about a year, I saw close up just how important the electeds, both the county commissioners and every other elected head and department relies on the prosecutor's office for legal advice. And in terms of how do you make sure that you're serving them, the first thing is to establish relationships. Find out where you're at in each of those places. What are the interests? What are the big needs? And the next thing you need to do is make sure that you've made time to meet with each person so they know how to access you, how to access your legal services, and making sure that you have an open dialogue. There'll be times where clients don't take legal advice. I have 15 years of deep civil experience where, believe it or not, my clients did not take my advice. You have to keep going back with sound legal advice, removing the emotion, focusing on the issue, focusing on the facts, and focusing on the law so you can serve county commissioners.
Thank you. Mrs. Hammond?
Thank you. I think the thing that people don't understand about the prosecutor's office, or one of the things they don't understand, is how the civil side works. And for the Board of County Commissioners in particular, we have two types of relationship with them. The first is the statutory command that we have to provide legal representation for the county, of which they are the legislative body. But the second is the Board of County Commissioners is our client, which means that as currently, we need to have civil attorneys that understand the issues the board is facing. Our civil office with the 5 attorneys who work there have done an excellent job building relationship with our county commissioners, and we're in a unique position because we'll have a new commissioner starting when Commissioner Wright retires at the end of July. So that opportunity to build that client relationship, and it takes listening and it takes great legal skill, because you have to be a good lawyer to give good legal advice, and you also have to listen to your clients. What do they need? How can you serve them? Truly a public servant who comes to the job willing to listen and serve.
Thank you. Mr. Ryman?
When I was in the military, I would have the opportunity to advise captains of ships, commanders of bases, and sometimes they're not used to hearing the answer no. And one of the things that they taught us in Naval Justice School was find a way to yes. And it's using the resources that you have, the guidelines, the instruction, the law, to see if you can get to yes. And that's always been in the back of my mind, find a way to yes. Obviously, there's sometimes where you just can't, and so maybe there's a workaround. And those workarounds come into play by developing and building and capitalizing on the relationships that are already in place. I know that there's, as Jody said, and Patricia's talked about, there's great attorneys in the office already. And the thing that I've been talking about during this forum is that it's critical to keep the people that are already in the office. They're very qualified, they're highly trained, they want to be there. Let's keep them there, let's keep them doing their jobs in the great positions that they're doing.
Thank you. All right, moving right along. Let's get back to some law and justice issues really quickly. This is another two-part question. I know these are your favorites. Let me think about how to ask this. Statistics, I think, show and prove out, and tell me if I'm wrong, repeat offenders are a large portion of the work of the prosecuting attorney's office, unfortunately. How do you address, number one, repeat offenders while ensuring fair treatment under the law, so avoid bias in those instances? And then secondly, what approaches do you think the prosecuting attorney's office can use, or have you used in the past, to reduce recidivism or repeat offense among young people? And Mrs. Hammond, I believe you're going first.
Didn't she just?
Oh, did you? No, I think it was, yeah, it was Mrs. Todd. Yeah. You tried to catch me, Mr. Ryman. I got it right that time. All right, go ahead, Joe. Or Mrs. Hammond, excuse me.
Thank you. This is a great question, and actually, as Mr. Ryman mentioned, one of the best parts about campaigning so far has been talking to people in the community and hearing from the community members what they think our job is and what our job actually is. And repeat offenders is something that has come up consistently. It's complicated. Again, I wish it was black and white. I wish I could say like, oh yeah, if somebody's been in court before, throw the book at them, because that's what the public wants to hear. But in Ellensburg and Kittitas County, we live and work with the people who are in our criminal justice system. These are our friends, these are our neighbors, these are kids that are not going anywhere. The kids who are in the juvenile justice system, they're gonna live in our community for a long time. And so how can we invest in ways to make sure that we hold people accountable and also use the resources that we have? I think that our office and the court systems currently, I think 3 of the things we can build on, I'll just be quick. The diversion program that has always been in effect for the county and the juvenile court is one way. The great relationship that we have with the public defender's office and the local attorneys who work, where we truly are committed to finding solutions for people. And thirdly, figuring out from the community, what do we need? What do we want? How do we reduce recidivism?
Thank you. Mr. Ryman.
So there are already two really great programs that we have. One is drug court, that's for felony matters related to drug issues, and then we also have in district court, both in upper district here in Cle Elum, and also in lower district we have what's called the BHC, it stands for Behavioral Health Court. That's a program that I was one of the leading members to create that program. We created that about 4 years ago. Our first day was Valentine's Day. It's just kind of a weird day to have our first court for Behavioral Health Court. But these are two great programs. Behavioral Health Court is a program that addresses people that are high risk to reoffend and in high need of services. So these are the repeat offenders. So it's a great way to get them into services. Same thing with drug court. So how we address repeat offenders is we look at what's in our toolbox, and we look at where they are on a spectrum, and we see which tool is the best way to intervene to get them to change their behavior.
Thank you, Mr. Ryman. Mrs. Todd.
This is a big issue for families. This is a big issue for our community. I hear this a lot knocking on doors. And what we don't spend enough time talking about is making sure that when you have a prosecutor's office and they're seeing repeat offenders, do those attorneys have robust enough training and adequate time based on their caseload to address those? When you see an individual who's going in and out of the criminal justice system, has someone looked at that case long enough? Have they had the right training to look at that case to make the proper recommendations to a court? Are they talking to law enforcement? Are they supporting those efforts that are being used to enforce the laws so they can be properly prosecuted? When you think about, okay, well then what are some efforts to reduce recidivism? For 1 year, I served on the drug court team, and I saw the power of what we call rehabilitation courts. And it takes a team effort. The prosecutor doesn't have all the answers. One of those answers is going to be reaching out to the director of public defense, to her office, reaching out to law enforcement, community groups. This is a job that requires a ton of collaboration with others, and that's the kind of prosecutor you're going to need.
Thank you. All right, last question before we move on to our closing statements. This one comes directly from the audience. Each of you candidates in your various answers have stated that you have various leadership experiences. Please take the next 60 seconds to expand upon that experience and give us some specifics.
So 22 years of active and reserve military service, I believe I received the best leadership experience that money can buy. It's a unique experience going through officer indoctrination school, going through naval justice school, working with fellow shipmates in the Navy, Coast Guardsmen in the Coast Guard. I've led different teams. I've been the senior reserve officer down in the port of LA Long Beach, leading a team of 40 plus reservists. I've been a part of a team with the Navy unit down in San Diego, where the opportunity to see commodores and captains and commanders lead their team, bring them in, go around the room and see them draw information out and heap on praise and guidance and direction. It's been a remarkable experience, one that I've soaked in, and I hope to be able to take that and use that in the office.
Thank you, Mr. Ryman. Mrs. Todd?
Leadership experience for me started 15 years ago as Assistant Attorney General. I managed a team of 4 attorneys with 8 support staff. And in my 15 years there, I was elevated to senior counsel, and by no time I was managing and leading 4 attorney teams with over 30 attorneys, 75 staff people. And the most important thing I learned about being a good leader is to meet people where they're at. When you can meet someone where they're at, you can help develop them. You can help elevate them. You can get to that place where you're both seeing incredible growth. To be a good leader means recognizing the strengths that you have, but also where your weaknesses are. You're going to help people do the same thing. The kind of prosecutor I'm going to be is making sure that I'm truly listening to people and meeting with them where they're at and seeing where we can all grow together.
Thank you, Mrs. Todd. Mrs. Hammond?
Thank you. It's kind of odd, but the first experience, I had leadership experience, as a kid, just doing things and being involved in leadership, FFA, and different kinds of things in college, moot court, mock trial, things like that. But in adult life, my first leadership experience came when I was a children's pastor at a church, and I learned a lot of leadership skills and things I still say today. For example, the phrase, only do what only you can do. And learning how to lead people in a way. It was volunteer leaders that I was leading at the time, so I learned a lot. And read actually a ton of books and watched a lot of other people that I thought were great leaders. And then when I came into the office 9 years ago and Greg promoted me to be the chief criminal, it may surprise you, but the skill set that makes you a great trial litigator doesn't necessarily translate into being a great leader of people. Just because you can go into court and win doesn't mean that you have all of the soft skills that you need to lead people. And so once again, I was put in a position where for the last 9 years, I've read hundreds of leadership books, and I've had hands-on experience leading people, sitting in an office with somebody when their life is falling apart, or second chairing a trial with a brand new attorney. And so it's really that hands-on leadership.
Thank you. All right, we're now going to transition to our closing statements portion for our prosecutor candidates. Since we've just been kind of going on rotation, I believe we'll start with Mrs. Todd, then we'll go with Mrs. Hammond, and we'll conclude with Mr. Ryman. You'll have 60 seconds. Mrs. Todd, your closing statement, please.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for answering questions. Thank you for being someone who wants to hear about what the prosecutor has to offer. I'm the candidate who checks all the boxes. I have commensurate civil experience, over 15 years of working really hard cases, death cases, paralyzation, millions of dollars at stake. I'm the person who's seen just about every civil discovery fight you can imagine. I've got abilities to work hard in criminal. I've been asked to do incredible criminal work in the office. I've worked on both the civil team and the criminal team. In these cases, there isn't a winner. This is working hard for the county. And the last piece is I have the leadership experience with the temperament to actually serve well. I'm going to be a servant of the law, a servant of this community. I'm going to treat everyone equally and follow the law. I'm Patricia Todd, and I'm asking for your vote August 4th in the primary.
Thank you, Mrs. Todd. Mrs. Hammond?
Thanks. I'm going to remain seated just to make sure I'm close to the mic. Ms. McGuffin asked us to do that. This county deserves a prosecutor who has the competence and the ability and the experience to begin serving and leading the office from the first day. The county should not have to suffer a setback when somebody comes in, which is why when Greg recruited me to run and why when I searched myself about running, I knew that I was the best person to run the office because of my experience, not just prosecuting criminal cases, every kind in our office, from fishing with a double barbed hook to first-degree murder, but having the kind of experience in the leadership on the team. I understand our budget. I understand what it's like to manage the attorneys in our office. I know the challenges that we're currently facing. There's been talk by Mrs. Todd and by Mr. Ryman about attorneys, and it's true. There's a nationwide shortage of prosecuting attorneys. The last 3 attorneys who've left our office have endorsed me, and they've done so because I've been a great leader.
Thank you, Mrs. Hammond. Mr. Ryman, your closing statement.
Thank you. So I don't have the most signs out there. I had somebody actually come up to me, Deanna, hey, I don't know who you are. So I know that I've got an uphill battle. I don't have the most signs. I haven't raised the most money. And I don't have the endorsement of the outgoing prosecutor. But what I do have is the most experience. I've been an attorney for 26 years, and I've been a military officer for 22 years. I've got experience on both the civil side and the criminal side. On the civil side, I've been an assistant city attorney for the city of Yakima and the city of Ellensburg. I've also advised on civil matters in the military, and I've been a prosecutor for most of my career. One of the unique things about me, too, is that you'll notice I'm the only one that doesn't have the R next to my name. It's purposeful. I decided not to bring in the national divisive politics into this position. It's the position, I'm not the one who decided that we have to declare a party, but I've decided that I'm declaring as an independent so that I don't bring in that divisive politics crowd out the message I'm trying to convey to you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryman. All right, that concludes our candidates forum for this evening. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Kittitas County Chamber for hosting us this evening. Please give them a round of applause. You all have been an amazing audience, so I'd like to thank you for that as well. We appreciate very much your participation. It is heartening to see when you come to communities like this, when you live in communities like this, to see local citizens actually taking an active role and an active interest in the elections process, and that's what you're all doing here tonight. We appreciate your very well thought out questions as well. Please give yourselves a round of applause. And then finally, I think we all deserve, our candidates deserve, excuse me, a round of applause. It's very difficult, as I stated earlier, to make the decision to run for office. It's not easy to sit here in the literal hot seat and answer questions and be judged by your peers. And once even when you win, you get to do it again in 4 years. So it's a tough road to hoe on a regular basis. You deserve our gratitude and you deserve our respect. Please join me in thanking our candidates. Thank you once again, everyone. Enjoy your evening.